Hello, guys. Welcome back. Happy Boxing Day, and welcome back to FPL. So, hold on. Let me check the mic to make sure that you guys can hear me clearly. All right, that should be okay. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to FPL. Um, as you guys can see on the screen, this is my team for now. At least the players that are locked. I'm pretty set on 12 of the 15 players here. And I probably will need you guys to help me decide whether I want to go for my last decide my last decision basically. So basically I could go for Martial, right? So the template essentially is going for Martial and having the bench for the Bruyne and Andreas. So one way that I think I could go. But I woke up this morning and I just felt like I should be going for Mason Mount instead. Right, I did consider a couple of factors as to why I think Mason Mount may be better than Martial. So if I were to go for Mason Mount, then I think I probably would set up without Andreas Pereira. I take Martial out, I downgrade him to Greenwood, and then because I'm gonna have Greenwood, I'll need someone who's a little bit more stable as my bench fodder. So I'll probably go for Patterson. So let's say I do this, right? There are a couple of reasons why I think Mount may be a bit better than Martial. So the first thing is I think Martial will still be eased back into the team. I don't think he's gonna get 90 minutes throughout. So if that's the case, then I think Mount has more minutes. Right. Secondly, there's not too many options in the forward line, so there's probably only Martial, possibly Mitrovic if we want him, and there's also Nketiah and Wilson. But if I have Almiron, I don't think I want to go for Wilson, right? And then for Nketiah, not really sure how he's gonna do. For Mitrovic, he's on 4 yellow, so we're not really sure whether we want him come game week 19 as well, even though he doubles, right? So I probably have to decide early whether I want to go without a third forward, right? This decision probably has to be made like now in game week 17. So the good thing about going for Mason Mount is by setting up with these 5 in the midfield, I can just very easily get to let's say Foden. I can get to Foden with just I have 1.1 in the bank, so I can get to Foden pretty easily. I can also get to Trossard if I want to in game week 21. I can also go Kulusevski in game week 20, and I could also go Saka, Madison, Bowen. All of these players have the potential to kind of explode. So I think at the moment it's looking like this is gonna be what it looks like. At least this is what I'm leaning towards. Alright. Some of you guys in the chat, Kev then says Patterson or Pero to start. Maybe Pero. Pero or Andreas? Andreas. Yeah, I prefer Andreas. So currently this is the dilemma. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna go with. I could go for Mason Mount, I could go for Martial. This is currently where I'm standing at the moment. Are you captaining Mount game week 19? It's possible. It's possible. I could captain Mason Mount in game week 19. Assuming I go with this formation. Problem is if I go with a 3-5-2 from the start, it's gonna be very difficult to switch back to a 3-4-3 later on in the season. So it is a bit tough. It is a bit tough that we have to make this decision now without much information. I'm not too keen on Fulham's double game week, if I'm being honest. Leicester, Chelsea, and Fulham players are probably the only reason why I would want to go for a 3-4-3. So are they worth it or not? That's the question. If Fulham didn't have the double game week, I think it's pretty easy that I go with this team. Mount/Chelsea is a wait and see. I think that's one way to look at it. I think I don't see myself going for them any later as well. So that's kind of why I'm going for Mason Mount now. Purely a fixture play. Purely a fixture play. And I think I'm a bit more willing to go for Mason Mount over Martial at this point. 8 mil mid plus Wilson, Almiron plus Nunes. I think it really depends on your other assets though. You need to cover all the bases. So it's hard to answer this question. But I think if I'm just deciding between either of them, Almiron plus Nunes then. Jonathan says, how about Nketiah since Jesus is injured? I think Arsenal is a wait and see, to be honest. I think their fixtures aren't that great. Let's pull it up. I think their fixtures aren't that great. Right. West Ham at home, Brighton away, Newcastle at home, Tottenham away, Manchester United at home. We probably would already have Martinelli or maybe Saka. So I wouldn't double on the attack actually. I wouldn't double on Arsenal attack. So in that case, I just prefer to go either Martinelli or Saka, and then that's pretty much it for attackers. What's good? Some of you guys are in the chat. Happy Boxing Day, by the way, and Merry Christmas to those of you guys who celebrate Christmas. How about KDB? So I did post a thread on Twitter as to why I think why I've decided to go for Salah ahead of KDB. I think if you guys go for KDB, I can't argue with that as well. There's good reason to go with KDB, but the reason why I'm going with Salah is because I think he's more nailed for minutes. I also think that their fixtures aren't as good as City, right? But for the first two fixtures, Kevin De Bruyne has a very tight turnaround, right? Leeds and Everton are only 2 days and 19 hours apart. So I actually do think that Kevin De Bruyne is benched in either one of those games. So that's why maybe going for Salah first is better. Plus on top of that, double game week 20 is not confirmed for Kevin De Bruyne. So if double game week 20 is confirmed for Kevin De Bruyne, I can just do Salah to De Bruyne. So, but then again, I get the De Bruyne argument as well, that those of you who watched the EFL Cup against Liverpool, Kevin De Bruyne is still really, really sharp. He kind of shook off the World Cup hangover, I guess. So he's looking really sharp, and on top of that, he's created so many chances. And the problem is there's Haaland, right? And Kevin De Bruyne is just someone that is 50-50 with Salah. I can't dissuade you guys to go for Kevin De Bruyne, but I can tell you guys why I'm going for Salah. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much why. Almiron way too cheap to ignore. Yeah, I agree. Almiron is really, really cheap. For Newcastle attackers, I think you go for either of Almiron or Wilson, right? I've seen some drafts with just Wilson. I think that's pretty alright as well. I think you can go with Wilson and not go for Almiron, and Wilson can be your placeholder for maybe Mitrovic or someone. So I get that, but 5.8, too much value there, I think. Do you believe in the Salah Christmas curse? I've actually never heard of that one. I tend not to believe in these things, to be honest. AJ says, hi FPL Consult, should I get Kevin De Bruyne instead of Salah? Yeah, I mean, I just laid it out for you guys. I think another reason that I've gone for Salah as well, right, is I actually think that in terms of how far up they are, I think Salah is pretty much an asset that is at the end of the phase of play, right? He's the finisher. He's the one that puts the ball into the net. But Kevin De Bruyne is more of a creator. He's more of an assister. So he's always looking for that out ball to Kevin De Bruyne. He's always looking for that cross or that through ball. But Salah's looking to score. Salah's not looking to assist. So from an FPL perspective, I think you could argue Salah is better, right? Ruli says, is it big at the back, mid, or attack? I'm thinking it's big in midfield, to be honest. There's really a lot of good midfield options, right? These 5 on the screen right now are pretty much, I guess, the pick of the bunch for now. But there's so many others that I've not included. Kulusevski, Maddison, who has good fixtures. Maddison's injured, but he has good fixtures moving forward as well. So potentially you want to root there. Bowen, Foden. Midfield is where I think we should really go big. At the back, I don't think so. I think big at the back is kind of a thing of the past for now, at least. And up front, I think Darwin, Martial, and Haaland is a popular combination. But as I've mentioned at the start of the stream, I think it's just whether you want to go for a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3. Right? There's good reason to go for either. I just mentioned that I'm going for 3-5-2 because of the flexibility in midfield, going from one player to another. But I think the rigidity of a 3-5-2 is also that Greenwood is not playable, as compared to a 3-4-3 where your 5th midfielder on the bench is probably Andreas. So, good reason to go for either, if I'm being honest. Greenwood, the weak link in your team. Yeah, I completely understand. But the thing is, will I want to activate the 3rd forward spot? It's just the decision that I'm making now. I have to decide now whether I want that 3rd forward spot. If I feel that that 3rd forward spot is necessary over one of the midfield spots, then I could just go for Andreas Pereira and then go for Martial up front. Kane, Haaland, Darwin. I'm actually not too keen on Kane. He's on 4 yellows, but I know people are going for him because he is probably one of the more consistent premiums. So I guess if he's the only one on 4 yellows in your team, you could go for Harry Kane. Should I cap Bruno? So my thoughts on Bruno is actually that I think he's a very good option. He's a very good differential. My only problem with that is his price point. I think 9.8 is a very tricky price point. So that's kind of why I haven't gone with him. And going without him actually allows the rest of the team to be so balanced. So that's kind of why I've decided to go with Rashford. Also, why is everyone going with Kepa? It seems like Kepa is first choice. And on top of that, it also seems like they're going to have the double game week in 19. He probably will start both of that. In the event that Kepa doesn't play, he's not going to get subbed on. So then we can just play Ward. And he's 4.5. He's cheap. I've seen some drafts that have gone without Cancelo and they go for Ederson instead. I think that's pretty interesting. I think their argument is that Cancelo doesn't have that kind of attacking output that we saw last season. But the funny thing is, he is still the 3rd highest scoring defender in the game. So, I think something to consider as well. I do think like there will be spells where Cancelo can go and get some double-digit hauls. So I don't want to miss out on that as well. And I think Kepa is fine as a keeper. I think if you're going for Ederson, you're probably capping yourself at 6 points there. So, thoughts on Havertz? He could easily haul. I think Havertz is a little bit too dangerous. Darwin is so annoying. I just can't own him, and I'm sorry. I'd rather go with Tony. What? Will Tony play? He's having that I think the issue with the FA at the moment. AJ says vice captain Cancelo. Probably not. Probably not. I'm probably gonna captain Haaland, and I'm probably vice captain Salah. Probably. Salah or Darwin would be my vice captain, but honestly I don't think it matters. Haaland will probably start. Tony or Wilson over Darwin? I don't think so. I think Wilson possibly. Tony, I think he's a bit of a risk. Having an 8 mil midfield. I think having an 8 million midfielder is impossible, or at least having a route there. So for me, I could go Rashford up to Mason Mount. I have I'm not sure if you guys can see 1.1 in the bank. So a couple of things I could do. I could go with Rashford up to Mason Mount. Rashford up to Foden. I could go Rashford to Maddison if I want. Kulusevski. All the options are there. So I think 3-4-3 is better when Andreas has a double game week. Yeah, I think that's the argument, right? That's kind of one of the reasons why 3-4-3 could be a more balanced draft. And I agree with that as well. And I've been on 3-4-3 since the early drafts. I've only just swapped to a 3-5-2 because I'm just coming to the realization that I think 3-5-2 could be kind of a route that gets me more double game week players in the future, right? Trossard, Kulusevski, Foden, all these players that I mentioned are all players that I could want. Let's say I go for Martial now. If I go for Martial now, I probably have to waste a transfer downgrading him if I want to go for an 8 mil mid, right? And that's kind of Martial to Greenwood is more I guess a transfer that does not progress your team, right? But if I'm going from Mason Mount to Foden, or let's say Rashford to Kulusevski, right? All these are progressing my team. So I think from that perspective, I think it's better to have a more expensive mid in Mason Mount than Martial, and then use that price point to move around, swap around the midfielders that double. Can you play Tony? I don't have Tony, and I think that Tony I'm not sure if he's gonna play, to be honest. What are your thoughts on Che Adams? I think he's a good differential. But I think Southampton are just a little bit risky, if you ask me. I think as much as I like Che Adams as a differential, I think he's a bit risky. Do you other recommended choices other than Kepa? Realistically, I was only considering two keepers. Kepa and Sanchez. Sanchez for that double game week 21 or potential triple game week for Brighton. So if I'm not going for Kepa, I'll probably go for Sanchez. This is a good bench. Ward, Andreas, White, Patterson, and in which order? Yeah, I think that looks like the standard bench, if you ask me. I'd probably put it in this order. So Ward, White, Andreas, then Patterson. Probably like that. Foden, Gabriel, and Greenwood, or Martial, Almiron, and Patterson. Foden is just so risky. Foden, Gabriel, and Greenwood, Martial, Almiron, Patterson. Maybe Martial, Almiron, and Patterson. I go for the latter. You could go Martial to Mitrovic or Wilson later. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, these are the options for if I go for Martial. I can go Mitrovic, I can go Wilson, I can even go Nketiah. But do I want that? Will I want that? And if I don't want that, going for Mount actually saves me a transfer. It saves me a transfer later on when I could potentially go for more double game week players when they announced. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. I know that Greenwood is less a viable bench option than Andreas, 100%. I have 0 Arsenal because I think they're going to start a very bad spell? Is it a big gamble to chase rank? I think it's fine to go without Arsenal, but you should have at least one. Right? Maybe you can go without Arsenal attackers, but I think defense-wise you need to have at least one because of their double, because of the potential double in 21 and the potential double in 20 and the confirmed double in 23. Sanchez, Kepa, James, Shaw, Trippier, White, Laporte. I think for this team, I probably wouldn't go for both Kepa and Sanchez. Firstly, I go for Ward as the backup keeper. And I think the rest of the team is fine. Instead of Laporte, I'd probably go for Akanji. I prefer Akanji. Jonathan says, hi, if I can afford a more expensive defender like Salah with 1 million in the bank, should I still have White instead? Salah is on 4 yellows, so I wouldn't go for Salah. I don't think he's going to start as well. He's back. He's only just got back to the Arsenal training camp, so I think Salah is not an option. So it's probably either Ben White or Gabriel. Now, Gabriel is definitely more nailed and more technical threat than Ben White. So if you have the funds, I think it's possible you go for Gabriel. Option A. Kane, Foden, Kulu. I mean, if I'm to choose one out of Kane, Foden, and Kulu, I'd go for Kulu. I think Foden is just a little bit risky if you ask me. I think Foden is definitely the epitome of a high risk, high reward kind of player. He's so good. If his minutes was as good as De Bruyne's, or at least how we feel about De Bruyne's minutes, right, then I definitely go for Foden. I'm thinking Maddison is a great option. I feel like Maddison is injured at this point in time, so wouldn't go for Maddison now, but I'd probably go for Maddison later on. What's the disadvantage? Cons going with 3-5-2. Well, sorry, let me just cough for a moment. Okay, so for a 3-5-2, right, I've just laid it out just now. First problem is Greenwood. For a 3-5-2, the first problem is that Greenwood is not playable, right? Or whoever that you have as your last forward. So that's one spot on the bench that becomes kind of useless as compared to maybe Andreas Pereira, who is a good bench option. That's one. And I think aside from that, I don't really see too much cons other than this that I just mentioned. But maybe something you can consider as well is that when you are in a 3-5-2, it's harder to switch back to a 3-4-3. But that can also be said for the 3-4-3, where it's harder to swap to a 3-5-2 thereafter. Right, so that kind of goes hand in hand, right? And as for the advantages of 3-4-3, I think it's mainly whether you want that third forward spot or not. Whether you want Mitrovic in the future, whether you want Nketiah, whether you want Wilson. For me, I think at this point, I don't foresee myself wanting them, right? And the decision that or the gamble that I'm making is that I think Fulham's double game week may not be as good as we think it's going to be. Right, Leicester away, Chelsea at home. I think there's a good chance that Fulham don't do that well in that game. And in that case, do I really need Fulham players? And if I don't, then going with Mason Mount now, going with Greenwood up front, kind of saves me a transfer in the future. Yeah, so I hope that's kind of clear enough. Why not KDB? I would go for Salah instead of KDB because firstly, I think minutes, Salah is more nailed for the first two, right? Leeds and Everton for Man City are only 2 days and 19 hours apart. Secondly, I think, I can't dissuade you from going for Kevin De Bruyne because I think he's a good option as well. He's a really good option. But thing is, at this point, double game week 20 is not confirmed. So I can just have Salah first and then go to Kevin De Bruyne later on. I think that's fine as well. And from an FPL perspective, Salah is further forward. So he's the finisher. Kevin De Bruyne is kind of the assister. So in that sense, I think from an FPL perspective, Salah may be a little bit better. I'm okay to gamble with him a little bit and then move over to De Bruyne if I want to. Yeah, it's different to go for Kevin De Bruyne now because in that case, I'm locking in my third City midfielder. And if I want Foden later on, say Foden really pops off and he gets good minutes, then in that case, I still want the option to go for Foden instead of Kevin De Bruyne. So yeah, that's kind of the thought process. Mount or Almiron, I could have both. If I downgrade Martial to green and upgrade Andreas to Almiron, I think having a Newcastle attacker for me is essential for me. At least one. At least Almiron or at least Wilson. So if you don't have Almiron, then I go for Almiron. If you don't have Wilson, then I go for Almiron. Is it Foden, Grealish is out of favour? Seems only Kevin De Bruyne or Gundogan is in the first team. I think Grealish at this point in time is still behind Foden in the pecking order. So the third Man City attacker for me is either Kevin De Bruyne or Foden. Are we sleeping on Spurs? I'm not too confident of Spurs minutes, if you ask me. I'm not too confident of that. I'm not too confident of Spurs doing well. Especially since they have a couple of injuries, and on top of that, I think Richarlison is also out, right? Son is also ill, but he probably will start as well. It's just something about Spurs that tells me that I don't think they will restart the season with a bang, as compared to these other teams. Yeah, I've seen the reports that Conte potentially would only play players that didn't go to the World Cup. I saw that. But I've also seen the lineup that comes with that, and I think it's impossible that he plays that lineup. They probably lose to Brentford if they play that. So I don't think it's true that he'll just only play those players that didn't go to the World Cup. I think that squad is too thin. Better wait for Mount if Halls get him in game week 19. I think for me at this point it's just whether I think Martial or Mason Mount will do better. And something that just came across my mind as well is that I think in terms of minutes, I think Martial, we saw him get subbed off maybe 60 to 70 minute at the 60 to 70 minute mark against Burnley. So I actually think that Mount may be more nailed for minutes, if you ask me. Right, but I think that's besides the case. I think people who go for Martial are just going for his attacking output. But that said, I think Wolves away may not be as good a game. Right, Mount has Bournemouth and then Forest in the first two. And Martial has Forest and Wolves away. So the difference there is, because in game week 19, you probably do Martial to Mitrovic, in which case you won't have Martial anymore. So these two game weeks wise, I actually think Mount has the better fixtures. Do you think Andreas is a must start since Mitrovic is not playing today? That puts him on pens, right? That puts Andreas on pens. Potentially. I don't think so. I think it's fine to bench Fulham. I'm actually not too confident of their fixtures, aside from the Southampton in game week 18 and the double in game week 19. So that's kind of why I haven't gone with Andreas now as well. How will you get Foden in game week 20 if you wish? Pretty simple. I think Mason Mount to Foden is the most straightforward one. Assuming I have free transfers as well, I could downgrade someone. I could find the funds to do Rashford to Foden, and I think the funds are not difficult to find. After Kepa plays the double game week in 19, I could drop him down to Everson. That's also possible. So I think getting to Foden is just a lot easier this way. Is Havertz over Darwin a smart move? I don't think so. I prefer Darwin over Havertz. Wilson and Almiron, or Mount and Martial. Can I choose one each though? I think one Newcastle attacker is kind of important to have. So I would choose Almiron and Mount. I mean, I have them in my team. I would choose Almiron and Mount. Mount is also yes, 733k. I know it is. Ideally, we would want to be higher. Couple of 50-50 decisions actually. I'm thinking about it at the start of the season that if I had gone the right way, would have swung a little bit. So hopefully we will do better. Mount is also not guaranteed minutes under Potter. True, that's true, but at the same time, he's the Chelsea player that has played the most minutes under Potter. So I'm willing to make this fixture play on Mount. Thoughts on going Son instead of Salah KDB? I don't think Son is an option, to be honest, at this point. What about Kulu? I think Kulu is more an option than Son for sure. And he is also 8 mil, so you could go for Kulu. I think he's a good player to go for. With 343, I have 2.3 in the bank. Will you upgrade Almiron to the likes of Saka and Mount? With 343 and 2.3 in the bank. If you already have Martinelli, I don't think I would go for Saka. I don't think I would go for two Arsenal attackers. I just think that they won't do that well in the starting few game weeks. KDB over Salah. I've gone for Salah. Mentioned it a couple of times. I think in general, I prefer Salah over KDB. It's just very slight. It's very slight, but I prefer Salah over KDB. Will Foden be benched against Leeds? I think there's a good chance he starts actually, because he was benched in the game. He didn't start in the game against Liverpool, so I think there's a good chance he starts against Leeds. But then again, we never know, right? We never know. Almiron and Mount, Martinelli and Rashford. Almiron and Mount. Martinelli or Almiron. I would still say having an Arsenal attacker is preferred, I feel. So if you don't have, then Martinelli. I want 3 forwards, so it's Almiron and Wilson or Mount and Martial. Okay, if you want 3 forwards, then Mount and Martial then. Mount and Martial. Yeah, Mount blanks. I understand it's just a pure fixture play, right? It's just a pure fixture play. Plus as well the ease of switching to other options within that price bracket as well. Same for me. Wrong decision sometimes causes red arrows. Got Billing instead of Almiron. Da Silva instead of Rodrigo. But yeah, I mean, when we look back at this season, I think there was so many 50-50s. So many 50-50s that could have swung the other way. So that's just FPL, right? That's just FPL. Andreas is better than Mount for FPL points. The thing with Andreas is how often are you going to play him in the first couple of game weeks? I could get to Andreas in future game weeks. I could just downgrade one of my midfielders to Andreas if I want to switch to a 3-4-3. But how many times are we going to play Andreas in the first 5 to 6 game weeks? I think just a double game week. And in that case, if he doesn't do well, then maybe that spot could be better used, right? So that's kind of the thinking behind why I'm going Mason Mount for now. Mount or Zaha? Mount. Zaha is pretty much banking. You're pretty much locking in a transfer that you will have to make in 2 game weeks time, I think. KDB or Foden? That's the question, right? That's the question. KDB is more nailed, I feel. KDB is more nailed. If I were to go for a City midfielder now, I go for KDB. I've seen some drafts actually that have Ederson instead of Cancelo, right, as I mentioned just now. But I just feel like Cancelo is important, right? So in that case, it just leaves one spot. So I will go for Kevin De Bruyne. Ahead of Foden. Is Havertz worth a punt for this week? I don't think I will go for Havertz this week. Probably a wait and see Havertz. Do you think tripling on Soton is a big gamble? They have the best fixtures and they're better in the past because of fixtures. I think there's every new manager, right? New manager, anything could happen. He's definitely a punt, right? But I think he's a decent punt, but he's a gamble that I wouldn't go out of the way to take, at least, right? I would prefer Martial over Che Adams, if you ask me. I don't have Salah and KDB. Yeah, so I've seen a couple of drafts without Salah or KDB. I've seen some drafts with Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, Saka, maybe Almiron, and that's it. That's the midfield. No top tier premium midfielder, right? And then the question for that I have for them then is, if they want to get to that premium midfielder, how do they get that? Right? If in the event that either of them really pops off, I think it's harder to get to one than start with one and then transfer them out for someone else. Which one is better, Foden or Saka / Madison or Almiron? Foden or Saka, Martinelli or Almiron? I think Martinelli and Almiron. The funds could be spread elsewhere, I feel. Right, Saka and Martinelli's numbers are very similar. Yeah, so that's why I go for Martinelli and Almiron. Yes, Saka's on pens, understand. But I still think in terms of output, I don't think it'll be too dissimilar. So Martinelli and Almiron. Cancelo had no minutes against Liverpool. How many games until he's ready to start? I think he's fine to start already. I think he was just rested, if you ask me. What formation are you using? I'm probably going to go for a 3-5-2 as it stands, at least, as it stands. Toby's a member, by the way. If you guys are interested, can click the join button to support the channel by becoming a member. You also join the Discord that's right above me here. And it's just a group of it's just a small group of like 60 to 70 of us just chatting every day. Right, so that's for the pro tier members. So if you guys are interested, Raheem Sterling or Bruno Fernandes? Definitely Bruno Fernandes over Sterling, for sure. Will Perisic start or be rested? Conte says he's fit to start, but Conte also says that he's not going to play anyone who's gone to the World Cup. So can we trust Conte? I think there's a good chance Perisic is benched, if you ask me. He was pretty much overworked in the World Cup. Played 90, 120, 90, 120. I think he was overworked. Leeds play so attacking, I'm almost certain they score against City today. Yeah, I think it's possible. But at the end of the day, there's every chance that City can just keep a couple of clean sheets like throughout, whether they play difficult teams, whether they play easy teams. There's every chance they could just keep a clean sheet in any game. So because of that, I think just having a City defender is just important. Having Ederson at least, Cancelo is preferred at least. Is what I think. My team: Kepa, Cancelo, Trippier, Shaw, Perrault, Salah, Bruno, Mount, Rashford, Haaland. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's exactly the midfield that I was talking about, right? Salah, Bruno, Mount, Rashford. Yeah, I think it's fine. Choose one. Nunes and Almiron or Wilson and Mount. Nunes and Almiron. That's what I choose. Good team: Sanchez, Cancelo, Trippier, Salah, Almiron, Mount, Martinelli. Yeah, I think that is pretty much close to template, but you have Mount. So I actually do like Mount as a differential. The only difference here is going for Mount over Martial. This is the only difference, like for my team, right? In my team selection video, I put Martial, but I've just come around to the fact that I think Mount may be a better pick. Because of the surrounding factors, right? Not just player for player, but also how I can swap him thereafter. Kulu or Mount? I actually prefer Mount just because of the double game week 19. You could swap the Kulu in 20 if they do double. Thoughts on other Man City defenders not named Cancelo? If I don't go for Cancelo, I'd go for Kanji. Simple as that. Why no expert talking about Spurs players? I mean, firstly, I'm no expert. I'm at 733. I just do a lot of research into the data and try to make the most optimal decisions at least. So Spurs players wise, I just don't feel like that they're gonna do as well. I don't think that they're restarting the season with the best fixtures. There's one, and there's also a couple of players injured as well. Tell me about FPL's second chance. So FPL second chance is basically, you know how at the start of the season, there's the overall rankings where in game week 1, you're put in this league where everyone has started in game week 1, and that's where you kind of get your overall rank, right? But now because there was a break, there was the World Cup, so they kind of want to keep that excitement going for FPL, I guess. So they're creating a new league that starts in game week 17 instead. Everyone is automatically added into it, and there'll be prizes for that as well. But obviously the prizes for the league that starts in game week 1 all the way to 38 is better than the prizes that start from 17 to 38. Right, so that's simply put. What are your thoughts on Kane? Will he keep banging on, or will his form dip? I think, if you ask me, I think Kane just continues to tick along. It's just whether I think his price tag is justified. Whether it's justified to go for Kane ahead of Salah or Kane ahead of De Bruyne. So at this point, I think, because let's say you go for Kane now, you take 2 transfers to get from Kane to Salah. You have to downgrade that forward spot and upgrade that midfield spot. So I think because of flexibility, because of how quickly the double game weeks are coming, double game week 19, possible 20, 21, 23, it's not a lot of transfers. So that's kind of why I wouldn't go for Kane. Mario, I am thinking of Kulu. Yeah, I think Kulu is the only Spurs option that I would consider if you ask me. I think Kulusevski is the only one. Alright. Martial or Rashford? Martial or Rashford? I prefer Rashford. Right. Wait, I've just received a text from one of my mates that we are about to hit 3,000 subs. Can we get there? Guys, we are 5 subscribers away from 3,000 subscribers. Oh my gosh. Could we get there? Okay, we'll come back to this later on, but those of you guys who are new, you're watching, just 5 of you guys to hit that subscribe button and we hit 3,000. Honestly, if you look at the channel growth though, it's just incredible. I'm super appreciative of all the support that you guys have given me. Started the channel in October 2021, and in a year we're gonna hit 3,000. Really, really, really grateful for all the support, everyone. Thank you so much. Wait, 97. Should we stay here? Should we stay on this to see it hit 3,000? Maybe we should. But I'll get to the question still. Whoa! 3,000 subscribers. Oh my gosh. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for the Christmas present. Right. Let's hope that the rest of the season goes well. And we can just continue to put out good content for you, right, on this channel. All right, so let's take a look at the chat. Let's get back to the chat. Thank you all of you guys who just subscribed to help me get there. Really appreciate that. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All the love in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. I'm from Singapore. I'm from Singapore. All right. Where did we leave off? That kind of, I'm just taking it all in at this point. All right, Walker or Van Dijk? Walker or Van Dijk? I think I wouldn't go for Liverpool defense at this point. If I were to go for a Liverpool defender, I would probably go for Robertson. But if not, then Walker. Right, so yeah. Darwin or Kane? I prefer Darwin. I think Kane is on 4 yellows, and I mentioned just now it's harder to swap from Kane to Salah to Kevin De Bruyne later on. So Pep says he values rhythm over. He values match rhythm. Cancelo was dropped for Portugal. Hasn't had game time to be sharp. Is there a reason you're confident he'll start straight away? I just don't see. If I'm not wrong, it's Rico Lewis. If I'm not wrong, if that's that's his name, I don't see him starting against Leeds. If I'm being honest. Thank you so much. I'm gonna shout you guys out. Thank you so much, Gary, right? Savio, Richie, Lionel, Patrick, Anselmo. Is that how I pronounce it? Bapakang, Trevolin, Patrick. Thank you all so much, right? Thank you all so much for the support. Ashlan as well, right? Thank you. All right. Went for Trossard and KDB instead of Salah and Mount. Okay, for Salah and KDB, I think going for KDB is fine. Right, Trossard over Mount is also fine. Right, so these are kind of the 50-50s that we're talking about at the start of the season. Right, if you go for Trossard now, it kind of saves you a transfer in 21 when they potentially double as well. So the issue with the Game Week 17 wildcard, I feel, is that we are having to decide early what we want for those double game weeks coming up. We haven't really seen, well, we haven't really watched the teams play in a while. We don't really know how they're going to respond, how they're going to restart, but we still have to decide, right? There's not a lot of transfers. So I think this is really excuse me. I think this is the toughest part of a Game Week 17 wildcard, if you ask me. Walker or Shaw? I prefer Shaw, but that's because I don't think I would want to go for Walker. Kulusevski or Mount? I'm on Mount. I think Mount has a double game week in 19, so you should go for Mount first and then swap to Kulusevski in game week 20. Is that final? FPL Boo Boo asks, is this final? At this point, I haven't locked in my transfers. Right, I probably won't stream all the way until the deadline because I think all the other FPL YouTubers are gonna stream. You guys can hop over to their streams. I'll probably confirm my team and post it up on Twitter, Instagram. But the thing is, there's only a couple ways I could go. Right, for those of you guys who just dropped in, let me tell you guys. So this is 60%, right, likely for me to go with this team. Aside from this, the only other possibility that I'm thinking of is the template. So Martial, Andreas, excuse me, and Bueno. So this is one, but this is one alternative, but I'm only 40% that I go this way. I prefer the other one. I prefer Patterson here. And I'm only going for Patterson because Patterson is more, I'm a little bit more assured of Patterson's minutes, and if I want to go for Mount and have, Greenwood in the team as my third striker to enable funds, then I would need a slightly more nailed fifth defender. So at this point, it's either this or the other one, right? Let me know what you guys think. I want to know whether you prefer Martial, as you guys just saw, right? I want to know whether you prefer Martial or Mount, because it's kind of a straight fight between the two. I'll put up a poll. Choose one. Martial, Mount. All right. All right, let me know what you guys think. Choose one, Martial or Mount. The poll is up. Right, I'm leaning towards Mount and a 3-5-2, but I also understand why some would prefer going for the template and going for 3-4-3 with Andreas as the fifth midfielder, good bench option. All these reasons, I understand that, but I just want to know what you guys think. Help me out, please help me out. Okay, where did we leave off? What is your rank? 733k, right at the top there. Not ideal, but we're gonna try and improve. Best dollar replacement. If you still want a Manchester United defender, then Luke Shaw. If not, I would think that Ben White is the defender I prefer as the first sub. Right, you probably would have 3 playing defenders, and then the 4th and 5th would be on the bench. The 4th defender would probably be your first sub, so I prefer Ben White there. Why don't you go for 3-4-3 and bench Andreas? See, that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? I could go that way. I think that's attractive as well. Andreas has a double game week in 19. I understand all that. But it's just, will I want Fulham assets in game week 19 is what I'm thinking. Right? Will I need them? Because if I don't, then going for Mount now saves me a transfer later on. I can just go Mount to Trossard, maybe game week 21. I can go Mount Kulusevski, Mount to Foden. So many options. I could just swap between all those that double. Right? 19 Mount doubles, 20 Foden doubles, 21 Trossard doubles, 23 Saka doubles. I can just keep switching this Mason Mount position. Saves me a transfer, and every week I just swap to whoever doubles. It makes sense as well, right? It makes sense as well. What do you think about Foden? Should I get him over Saka or Martinelli or Almiron? I shouldn't get him. Congratulations for the T-Round subs. Thank you so much. I think Foden, for me, the reason why I haven't gone with him is because I also think that he doesn't start both. Leeds and Everton are 2 days and 19 hours apart. I actually think he doesn't start both as well. So it's still a gamble. There. Worth going for Everson and Ward. I think because Kepa is 4.5, I think he's hard to ignore. And then Ward just becomes the natural replacement. Never go template. That's the thing, right? If I go for Mount, I think Mount is low ownership as well. I think Martial will be... What's the ownership at this point? 6.8 for Mount. 4.6 for... Martial is actually a bigger differential, right? It's just the fixtures as well, I see. Like, game week 19, Martial has Bournemouth at home. Will I make the swap? Game week 19, when Martial plays Bournemouth and Mitrovic has the double, will I be able to make that swap? And if I'm... Because it's good enough, right? Bournemouth at home is actually a decent fixture for Martial. And if I want him, if I get him, I actually would want him for the first and the third fixture, which is Nottingham Forest at home and Bournemouth at home, instead of the Wolves away game, right? But that's just the situation right now. If I go for Martial, I probably swap him out in game week 19. In which case, I play him for Wolves, I play him for Nottingham Forest. If he blanks against Forest, then you know. Right, let me catch up a little faster. Toby says, will John Stones play? I think there's a good chance that he starts. But for me, if he starts, right, I think he actually starts at either... I think if he starts at right back, if you ask me. Then Cancelo at left back. So ahead of Walker. But I don't think John Stones plays centre back. So if Pep actually starts Walker, then I think Stones wouldn't play. So that's just my thoughts. I think my predicted City back line would be Akanji, Laporte, Cancelo, and Walker. That's what I'm thinking right now. Anish says Kepa, Ward, James Trippier, Walker, Patterson, Bruyne. Hold on. I'm a little ill. I haven't fully recovered, but the content and the grind has to continue. Kepa, Ward, James Trippier, Walker, Patterson, Bruyne, KDB, Rashford, Almiron, Mount, Andreas, Forbes, Haaland, Kane, Wilson. I think this is a fine team. This team is pretty alright, right? I can't dissuade you from going anywhere else, to be honest. What will be your rank based on fixtures or FPL points on this player? Either Darwin. I think Darwin, Havertz, and Martial, out of all these, Darwin is the best. Right, Darwin is the best. Brian says, hi mate, what's your opinion on the full template team? There are a lot of transfers such as Rashford to Trossard, Martial to Mitrovic, Salah to KDB booked in for doubles, and that's 3 moves at least. Yeah, completely understand that, but at this point also it's we have to, right? We have to. I mean, the way it is, we have to book in some, but we can't book in too many as well. So at this point, I think it's just about finding the balance, right? For me, I think it's about finding the balance and whether we can book in as little transfers as possible, and that's kind of why I've gone with Mount as well, right? I book in as little transfers to just make one move every week and not have to bother about shifting funds elsewhere, and that can actually save one transfer for me as well. Keep Mitro and bench him for White, or take Martial or Nketiah and bench White. I definitely wouldn't have Mitrovic. I think Mitrovic, he's a bit of a doubt for game week 17, so I wouldn't have Mitrovic. So I would go for Martial. In your case, I would go for Martial and I would bench White. Yep. Kane or Salah, Mount or Zaha, Foden or Rashford. I go for Salah, Mount, and Rashford. Essentially my team, right? I mean FPL is kind of a game of opinions and also a game of gut feel as well. So naturally, if I were to make a draft, I guess my kind of advice or my kind of opinions would also shift towards that, right? So, but objectively, I'll try to give advice based on who I think is the best player to have, right? So for Kane and Salah, I kind of mentioned, right? I think Kane, he will take along, right? But to swap to Salah or KDB later on would be harder if you want. Mount or Zaha, Mount has double game weeks. Foden or Rashford, Rashford has a good set of 3 fixtures. He's nailed 90 minutes. Potential to play a centre forward position if Martial gets subbed off as well, right? Maybe in the last 20 minutes, Rashford moves to striker, and Garnacho plays on the left instead, right? These are all things that could happen. Right? So objectively speaking, these are players that are pretty good, like as options in their own right as well, right? Not just based on my opinion as well. I've got Foden, Saka, KDB, and Rashford in midfield. Yeah, I think it looks good as well, right? You have two 8 mil mids, and these allow you to kind of swap around. Problem is, with Foden, it's high risk, high reward, right? Please, can you play Saka? I wouldn't have Saka if I already have Martinelli. I wouldn't go for two Arsenal attackers. I just wouldn't. Gross or Trossard out for Rashford? I think I wouldn't go for Gross if you ask me. The preferred Brighton attacker for me would be Trossard. Yeah, I would prefer Trossard. So Rashford to Trossard is actually one of the moves that I could potentially make in the future. Brighton going to have a double, not showing the fixtures yet. Yeah, Brighton will potentially have a double, right? Will potentially have a double in game week 21, which could be a triple as well, right? So Asia Physio says just found you, so a new sub here. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you guys for getting me to 3,000 subscribers. We're currently on 3,017, if I'm not wrong. 3,017, right? So I couldn't have done it without you guys. I really am so appreciative of every single one of you, right? Thank you all so much. All right. Wondering about the opinion on Perisic as a random pick. I'm not sure why I put him in a week ago, tempted to leave him there. I think Perisic has been overworked in the World Cup. and in which case I think I wouldn't be too confident of his minutes right after the restart. So I would say he's a wait and see. Right? Ward, Kepa, Cancelo, Trippier, Bruyne, James, Brandon Williams, Martinelli, Mount, Rashford, Kevin De Bruyne, Kulu, Haaland, Greenwood, Darwin. I would do Brandon Williams up to maybe Ben White. Then I think you're good to go. Pope and Ward, Cancelo, Trippier, White, James Bueno. Midfield is Zaha, Almiron, Foden, Andreas, and Martinelli. Attack is Kane, Nunes, and Haaland. I think this team books in too many transfers. Zaha, you would want to move him out later on. Kane, if you want to swap Kane to let's say Salah or De Bruyne, right? Okay, you wouldn't have De Bruyne because you have Foden, right? But if you want to move to stronger in the midfield, right? I think it would be harder for you to do that. So I wouldn't go for Kane personally, but I think if you have a gut feel about Kane, then I think this team is fine. Yeah. Georgie says, Merry Christmas, folks. Just a little heads up for all who opted against Nketiah. Are going to regret that big time. I think at this point we don't know, right? We don't know how Arsenal is going to respond to Gabriel Jesus being out. So, I would take the stance of a wait and see kind of situation. Is Walker nailed on starting? I think he's good to start, but I also think that it's possible John Stones plays right back. So, yeah. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you for 3,000 subscribers, man, guys. It's incredible. Best Wolves midfield. Don't you think the template lacks Wolves players? They're very good fixtures and a solid team. I think the issue with Wolves, the issue with Wolves is that they're just a team that hasn't done well this season. I think defensively they still have signs of being pretty solid. Lopetegui would come in and kind of make it a strong defensive team. But attackingly, they just haven't really impressed, right? Most of their goals come from Neves. Yeah. Ben says Ederson and Ward as a pair. Thoughts? I think going for Ederson and then going without Cancelo is one of the viable options. But thing is, in which case I think I wouldn't play Ward as often then, which kind of makes it a bit of a waste if I don't have Ward, right? I can go for Kane, De Bruyne, Darwin, and Haaland with no James. I will still have James. I'll find a way to fit James in. I think Reece James he's a player that I'll be very afraid to have, very afraid not to have against Bournemouth, against Forest, and a double game week. I would just be, excuse me, I'll be trembling. Neves or Podence. I wouldn't go for either, to be honest. Is Laporte nailed? I think Laporte is nailed. I've just subscribed. Thank you so much, Tiger and Guna. When is starting 11? The deadline is in 2 hours actually. I probably stop streaming in a bit. When the other I'll probably stop streaming in a while. When is the starting 11? I think the starting 11 will be out after 7. In about 2.5 hours time. In a 2.5 hours time, I think. James or Cancelo, both. I wouldn't choose one. I go with both. All right. Thank you all guys for coming down. I think that's pretty much it for my team, at least. Right? At least if I go back to my team and talking a bit about it, I'm pretty sure that I will go with this team, 3-5-2. I'm pretty sure. You guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'll probably post my teams there just before the deadline. But it's likely that I'll stick with this formation. It's likely that I would go with a 3-5-2. It's likely. For all the reasons mentioned just now. But I'm just interested to see what you guys think as well. 162 votes. Everyone thinks Martial ahead of Mount. In which case, you guys want me to go for a 3-4-3 with Andreas as the first. Andreas as the fifth mid. I think balance-wise, the template is strong. And there's a reason why the template is the template. I'll probably flop back and forth before. I'll probably chat with some of the guys in the Discord as well. If you guys are interested to become a member and join the Discord, we chat FPL every day. There's also channels for team leagues, one-to-one discussions with me if you guys want to have it. So yeah, you can just become a member and join our Discord. I'll probably hop on over to the Discord after the stream as well. Perisic, Darwin and Martinelli to Kane, Bruyne, Odegaard. I'd keep Darwin actually. If you have value locked up in Martinelli, I would also keep Martinelli. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I think you go for Perisic to maybe a Ben White or something. Double up Newcastle defense. I think there are too many things to prepare for in the future that would make me want to go for a double Newcastle defense, if you ask me. Right, Trippier or Gabriel? Trippier, 100% Trippier. Who's gonna be the keeper for Aston Villa this week? I think it's the. Hold on. Definitely not Martin. Definitely not. Emi Martinez. Looks like it's gonna be the third team keeper, if I'm not wrong. Olsen is injured as well. Alright, I think it's gonna be the third choice. Thoughts on Kane? Kane's on 4 yellows. I also said that I think it's harder to sort from Kane to maybe Salah or De Bruyne if you want later on. But he will take along. So, yeah. Good point made. No worries at all, Asia Physio. Tried the same team, is giving -6. Kindly help. If I'm to do anything to this team at all, right, is to switch it to the template, which is Martial. If I'm to do anything to this team. So, yeah. Alright, guys. Thank you very much for coming down. Thank you for tuning in. I think all the other FPL YouTubers are streaming now. So you guys can head on over there. Thank you for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. I think moving forward, I'll just be doing this. I'll just be streaming about 3 hours before. You guys can come down, chat FPL, and then head on over to the other channels. I think streaming just before the deadline is a bit too packed. right? So I guess those of you who want to stream a little bit earlier, or you can't make it just before the deadline, you can come to my stream, right? Okay, so I think FPL Raptor is streaming now. If I'm not wrong, you can head on over to his stream. And on top of that, I also made a video. I worked on it together with Raptor for a little bit, and he kind of liked it as well, right? So check it out. I analyzed his team, talked about how he got to 2088th in the world. So I think you guys will be interested in that. For now, yeah, I'll post my teams on all the socials. Hope you guys have a good Game Week 17, and I'll see you guys in the content that's to come for Game Week 18, right? Happy Boxing Day, and all the best for Game Week 17, right? Bye-bye.